The Cinema Chronicles is back for volume 26 on this February month. The Valentine's is over, thank God. Just kidding. We don't really celebrate Valentine's Day at our house. My son's birthday is very close to Valentine's, so it's basically just a whole big celebration for that dude. But hey, hope everyone else enjoyed it. Hope you got your reservations, or you bought maybe some fine-ass jewelry, or maybe you got that one special do-it-yourself pretzel bake package. That's a real gift I got, and still haven't used it. So, but yes. Oh yeah, hey, I'm your host, the resident film critic for Sobros Network. I'm a member of the Southeastern Film Critics Association, as well as a board member of the Music City Film Critics Association, and the co-creator of the Nashville Movie Dispatch, which is where you can hear this fine episode, along with every single other movie thing you can think of that has come from us bunch of dudes from the Sobros. So I thought this would be a really good time to share a dream I had a couple of weeks ago. Now, let me tell you, if I dream, I don't remember hardly any of them. So if you ask me, do I dream, I would say very rarely. And even if I did, I kind of remember maybe a part of it, but I certainly don't remember the whole thing. I don't even know. So even this dream was a little scattered, but it felt so real to me. I don't know who I was with, but I feel like it was like some restaurant atmosphere. I just feel like I was sitting at a table, and for some reason, because of being a part of a critic association in the media, they were like, hey, do you want to interview Frankie Muniz? And I thought, what? And I thought, what is he even in? And what am I going to ask him about? So I remember thinking, well, I mean, shit, we're in the same place. And if I can get there, if I can just go up there and ask him a question, I mean, why not? And so I get up to do, I don't even know where I go to act like I'm going to write notes for this, but I do, and I think, man, what am I going to ask him about? Because I've never watched Malcolm in the Middle. But I'm also thinking, God, that's what I'm sure 100 people are going to ask him, because I'm assuming he has no new projects whatsoever. So I don't look at that. I just think, how can I break the ice, and what can I ask him about? And then I remembered I can ask him about the wonderful Paul Giamatti, since they worked together in Big Fat Liar. So I'm going to go to Frankie Muniz, and I'm going to ask him about Paul Giamatti. And I don't know, it felt like this was only like 10 minutes. So I think I'm ready. For some reason, I think I'm prepared, even though my only thing I'm going to ask him about is Paul Giamatti from Big Fat Liar. Not about Frankie Muniz and Big Fat Liar. I'm only going to ask about Paul Giamatti. So then I feel there was like a line, and I just remember someone come up and saying, okay, when you're ready, sit here. And I kid you not, when I sit down, it is not Frankie Muniz, it's Colin Farrell. Now, parts of me was way more excited because I have a lot more to talk about with Colin Farrell than I do Frankie Muniz. But then, even in my dream, I thought, how in the fuck did we get confused between Frankie Muniz and Colin Farrell? And more importantly, I can't ask him about Paul Giamatti and Big Fat Liar. I guess I could have, but that just seemed disrespectful. So I remember the first thing I said to him was something about Banshees of Inisherin. And I remember him laughing and telling me something. And I just remember him being the sweetest man to me. And this was like a very quick 3 minutes. But I just remember thinking, holy shit, did I just become friends with Colin Farrell? And then I woke up. So I went from being asked, I don't know where I was, to being asked to interview Frankie Muniz, slightly panicking, coming up with probably a very shit question for him. But I thought, oh, well, Paul Giamatti, we can talk about him. To then being just flabbergasted. Colin Farrell has replaced him. And then I'm like, my God, what are we going to talk about? And if you ask me, I would say, yeah, I've met him, and he's just like you think he is in his interviews. He's sweet, he's charming, he's funny. I made him laugh with whatever I thought about Banshees of Inisherin. So anyway, I'd say for like 2 days after that, I bragged to everyone, including my wife, about how I know Colin Farrell.
Did you know Frankie Muniz is a NASCAR racer?
I did know Frankie was a racer, but I don't watch that either.
Just had an 11th place finish.
Oh, well, you know, if I knew better, they're rebooting Malcolm in the Middle. Mm-hmm. So I could have gone that way, but clearly my heart wasn't in it. But my heart, more than my heart, was in it with Colin Farrell, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, it felt like, oh man, I can't wait to interview him again. He's going to remember me. And anyway, it wasn't real. So, but it felt, God, did it feel real? He feels like the one that got away, but in like a non-personal, fictional kind of way. So, now let's get back on track. Cinema Chronicles. I've got a action comedy, I've got a romantic comedy, and I've got a horror comedy. So let's start with this action comedy that loves Valentine's Day. Coming up next. The movie is called Love Hurts. Ke Huy Quan in his first lead action role. As you know, he won Best Supporting Actor for Everything Everywhere All at Once a couple years ago. He swept it. He won every single award. So he is back, and he is throwing down. Per IMDb, a realtor is pulled back into the life he left behind after his former partner in crime resurfaces with an ominous message. With his crime lord brother also on his trail, he must confront his past and the history he never fully buried. So, there was an IndieWire article that I was reading about Quan, and he was talking about how Steven Spielberg convinced him to take the leading role in Love Hurts. And I don't know if you know this, but Quan and Spielberg go way back because Quan was in The Goonies and he was in the second Indiana Jones. And apparently him and Spielberg, I guess I shouldn't say have kept in touch, but Spielberg always kind of sent him a birthday gift every year. So they've been in each other's lives for forever. And so it says, taking on the lead role in the upcoming action comedy was not a foregone conclusion for Quan, who passed on the script a number of times before agreeing to sign on. He said this wouldn't have happened without an old friend helping to change his mind. Quan says, I was at an event with Steven Spielberg, and he was asking me, Ke, how are you doing? And I said, Steven, I'm not doing so well. Because of all the love and support that I'd gotten during the whole awards season, I was worried that whatever I was going to do next, I would disappoint. This was Quan. This was in a recent interview with Empire. So I was having trouble picking my next project. And Steven was very generous. He said, Ke, let's have lunch. And I told him about this project and kind of pitched it to him. And he said, Ke, it's great. Do it. He goes on to say, I thought it was written for somebody like Jason Statham because I've been conditioned to think that when you have an action star, he needs to look like The Rock or Stallone or Schwarzenegger, he said. And I didn't think anybody that looked like me could star in this role. Luckily, they didn't give up on me, meaning the directors, producers. They came back for a third time. And as you see, third time was the charm. So as far as the movie itself, Love Hurts, while it is fun to watch Key kick ass, this action comedy never really kicks into gear. The characters are cardboard, the action is average, and the laughs are sparse. So if I go back to what he said, where he said, I was worried that whatever I was going to do next, I would disappoint. I will say, Kwan did not disappoint. The movie he's in definitely does. So, also, as you know, Marshawn Lynch is in this movie, and if you don't think he deserves to be in any movie, you're dead wrong and you haven't seen Bottoms. But Marshawn Lynch and Andre Erickson are really the comedic duo of the movie, and even they aren't hitting the mark every time. And they're probably, I would say, definitely the funniest of the bunch. And as much as it loves Valentine's Day, and listen, I mean, they say Valentine's Day, there's decorations everywhere for Valentine's Day, there's heart shit everywhere, there's a whole thing about where Ariana DeBose's character, who is the former partner in crime who's come back, she's sending out Valentine's Day cards. Like I said, there's tacky decor, and Key's even wearing a heart sweater almost the entire movie. The relationships and the chemistry between them is terrible and meaningless. So there is Leo Tipton and the Raven, which Leo Tipton is, and I cannot remember the actress's name, but she is in Crazy Stupid Love as the daughter who likes Steve Carell's character, who his son likes her because she was the babysitter. And then the Raven, who is a poet/murderer, and their whole thing, I don't believe at all. It's not interesting. It's not funny. It just seems stupid from the get-go. And then there's Marvin, that's Kwan, and Rose, and that's Ariana DeBose. And so they're our main, thing, right? If there is any romance in this movie, it's got to come from them first and foremost. And it doesn't. They never seem like I think Ariana DeBose is miscast. They don't even seem like they go together. Their interactions feel lifeless. It's not believable for 1 second. So you already are really put off because for anything of the romantic side of this story, none of it comes across as authentic or genuine. None of it. So I'd almost say you'd have to see it for yourself, but let me finish and then you can decide for yourself. But so anyway, not buying any of the love that's going on there. I wish Love Hurts would have stuck with the same energy it brings in the first probably 15, 20 minutes. If so, I think this really could have been a blast. It's mainly the action. It's also, you can kind of tell it's a little bit, it sort of knows what it wants to be, or at least when you're first, when it's first, in its first few scenes. And then when the first kind of action sequence kicks in, there's all this creative camera work where they're kind of flashing back and forth. You're seeing an angle within the microwave and the fridge, and it just seems it seems like it's having fun. It knows that it's going to try and be a bit foolish, but in like a cool way, to say, hey, it wants to be some kind of version of Nobody that had Bob Odenkirk in it. And I think it kind of want to be more lighthearted, but then it also still wants to try and be serious and still wants to be dramatic and still wants to be emotional, and it just doesn't work. I wish the first little bit would have carried over. And again, this movie's only like an hour and 23 minutes, so it's not that long. And more so, Love Hurts has every opportunity to go crazy and over the top, but yet it refuses to embrace it. It just, they keep coming back around to continue pushing to be to taking itself seriously and trying to portray itself as being sentimental. And like I said, it doesn't work. I don't know why they tried so hard with that, when it just seems like they kind of had the idea going at the beginning, but then they I don't know, they mess it up as it goes along. In the end, I think that there's so much that could have been done. There's so much where you could have really used this cast to their full potential, and it's not. It doesn't happen. A lot of stuff gets pretty generic. There's stuff with Marvin's brother that is supposed to mean something. He deals with baseball, and he has a conversation with Marvin's boss, who's played by Sean Astin, who starred in The Goonies with him years and years ago. It's a good scene, but it leads to nothing. There's supposed to be this kind of heartfelt stuff, or this is supposed to be personal, and it's not. There's not enough time spent. There's not enough thought behind it, so you don't really care. You don't really care. And the flashback scenes to kind of explain Marvin and Rose's relationship and how things kind of went astray and why she disappeared and stuff it just has Key in a suit with a mustache, and it's very, I didn't even care. So Love Hurts wants to be everything everywhere all at once, but unfortunately it's not much to anyone. Love Hurts gets a VixFlix rating of 2 out of 5 stars. And coming up next is the next and what might be the final Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy. I thought that was a pretty good British accent. I don't know if you got the full effect of it. Let me try again. Teas and crumpets make my hips plummet. How about that?
That's good.
Nice. So Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy. This is the 4th film in the series. And via IMDb, that is listed as Bridget Jones navigates life as a widow and single mom with the help of her family, friends, and former lover, Daniel. Back to work and on the apps, she's pursued by a younger man and maybe, just maybe, her son's science teacher. If this is the final chapter of Bridget Jones's diary, it ends in a very graceful and gratifying way. It's engaging, it's funny, it's whimsical, it's moving, and supremely charming. Renee Zellweger, with a little bit of Hugh Grant and Colin Firth, is just what the Love Doctor ordered. I think this was the best sequel of the bunch, and I was actually a pretty good fan of the last one, Bridget Jones's Baby, which was almost a decade ago. And there's a movie review rewind of that on Sobros Network in case you want to check that out. So this is a variety piece. It's about the Bridget Jones author, Helen Fielding, on bringing Mad About Boy to the big screen and defying stereotypes in women and dating younger men, because there is an age gap with one of the love interests. It says Bridget Jones is inherently personal to Helen Fielding, who started the franchise as a column for The Independent in the 90s. She created the Bridget character to hide her identity, but is forthcoming that a lot of the stories are based on her own life and those of her friends. That was the irony about me not writing the original column as myself, because I wanted to be private, she says, so I completely exaggerated the character, and then it was just me anyway. So as with the other Bridget Jones films, Fielding co-wrote and executive produced Mad About the Boy, but its subject matter hits especially close to home with the death of Fielding's former partner, a TV writer, Kevin Curran, with whom she has 2 children in 2016. So Fielding made it her mission to ensure that those complex emotions found their way into the script, in addition to a healthy dose of humor. So I think, and I think a lot of people would agree, that Bridget Jones is and will forever be the career-defining character for Zellweger. She's won 2 Oscars, but I have a feeling general audiences probably don't even know. Probably, 1, don't know that, and 2, they really don't know for which films, which was Cold Mountain and Judy. But the truth is, there simply isn't a Bridget Jones without her. In a whirlwind of Jones's romances, her imperfections, her messiness, she never stops being herself. And in this one, Mad About the Boy, it feels as though she's less embarrassed and is actually embracing the woman and mother that she is. You don't have to be a woman, you don't have to be British to relate to someone who's just trying to keep their shit together. And look, that's tough to do. But if you've been a fan of hers since 2001, when the very first Bridget Jones' Diary came out, you'll feel a sense of proudness of where she's been and how it's led to where she's at now. This being the first Bridget Jones movie that I've seen as a parent, it struck me differently watching Jones go through grief and her kids growing up without a dad. Certain parts got me a bit misty-eyed. And while this Bridget Jones can't help being adorable and does adore nostalgia, there is also this newfound maturity in this film that's about a stage in life that we could never be prepared for. In that same Variety article with the author, one of the questions was, as you mentioned, this Bridget Jones installment is a little more serious than the others and confronts aging as well as the grief Bridget has after Darcy's death. What was the message you wanted to get across? I was wanting to explore the world I see around me, which is how life is for women as they age, and what I see is they don't change that much. They're still vibrant, still dating, having sex and doing things wrong and laughing and finding joy and keeping the same friends. And then the thing about grief, and I do, of course, know about this personally because I had the same story with little children, is that it's a sort of a mixture. It's like going through muddy puddles. You go dark and then you come out. Then you go in and you come out. And I thought the film and the book were an opportunity to show that humor is actually a very intelligent and nurturing way of processing grief. So to see Bridget still keeping her chaos, setting spaghetti on fire, walking to a shop buying condoms, and seeing the schoolteacher behind her, in the midst of genuine pain and emotion with the children is quite tricky. Now, for me, while it may be tricky, the cast makes it work wonderfully. Zellweger is a delight. She knows this character like the back of her hand, even as the character has gone through these different stages in life within these 4 movies. Emma Thompson is back. She's hilarious. And after skipping Bridget Jones's Baby, Grant is back from the dead as Daniel Cleaver, and even he's gotten a tad soft in his later years. The few scenes between him and Renee are sublime. I'm happy to see everyone back one more time to celebrate these new beginnings and happily ever afters. Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, is, besides the original, I think it's second best. Gets a VixFlix rating of 3.5 out of 5 stars. And coming up next, we're going to close it out with a slasher rom-com with hard eyes that light up. Ooh, romantic. Golden. So before we wrap things up with Hard Eyes, just a reminder, Stoney and I have a podcast review on the VixFlix podcast of the new Captain America, Brave New World. Also have a review on Nashville Movie Dispatch of The Monkey, Oz Perkins' new one based on a Stephen King short story. And be on the lookout for my Oscar prediction piece on Wednesday on Nashville Movie Dispatch. And then, of course, we are going live at the Oscars Sunday, March 2nd. So that is, that's this Sunday. So let's start with the Rotten Tomatoes on Hard Eyes. It's pretty simple. For the past several years, the Heart Eyes Killer, HEK as they call him, has wreaked havoc on Valentine's Day by stalking and murdering romantic couples. This Valentine's Day, no couple is safe. First off, I've got to give it to Hard Eyes. We just don't have enough V-Tines horror flicks. I think there's My Bloody Valentine's Day Massacre, which was like from the 70s or 80s. And then the only one I remember is My Bloody Valentine, I think, in 3D that came out, I don't know how many years ago. It had the guy from Supernatural, and he's in The Boys, I think. Yeah, he is in The Boys. Anyway, I could look up his name, but who has the time? So, but what director Josh Rubin, who directed Werewolves Within, that is such a funny horror comedy. I highly recommend it. And writers Philip Murphy, Christopher Landon, and Michael Kennedy initially set out to do is give us, the audience, the cheesy, sappy romance that we get swept up in the rom-coms, and the total gore fest of a horror film. And on paper, I think it probably did look good. I think it looked like a winning combo. But the end result here is not nearly as scary, clever, or cute as it thinks it is. What I did like was Rubin. The way he did the rom-com scenes, they look so clean and vibrant, and have all this kind of like whimsical music. The absolute look, feel, and dialogue and tropes of a rom-com. And obviously it is intentional. And then when it gets to kind of the scary parts, it's dark and it's gloomy, and of course the music changes to where it gets suspenseful. So, he's obviously playing within genres. He's also poking fun of them. And it wants to, it wants to, right? This is intentional. I know that. It wants to poke fun at both genres and have a good laugh at the ridiculousness. It's very self-aware. However, even though it's picking on and highlighting the cliches, it still has those cliches, and it gets pretty tiresome as the movie goes on. The comedy is more effective than the horror, though neither gives us anything that would be defined as unique or fresh. It's a bloody massacre, so I'm sure there are some kills that will maniacally delight, but I assure you, it's nothing that you have not seen before. When you start getting, this movie doesn't hold a candle to some of these others that, the Terrifier movies instantly come to mind. And the finale where the reveal happens, right? That big reveal, who's under the mask, who's been doing the killing, is hardly a surprise. And I'll be honest, I didn't really care who it was. And when you find out who it is, I don't think you'll care either. I will say kudos to Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. They kind of lead Hard Eyes because their charm and charisma do all they can to carry this along for its 90-minute runtime. They do go good together. They have undeniable chemistry, and I think that's probably Hard Eyes' biggest strength, whether it's the romantic part, funny part, kind of when they need each other during those terrifying moments. I think they're bringing it the best that they can with what they have. So I definitely think the best parts are definitely involve them. I had tweeted out the week of the Hard Eyes release, which came out in early February. I tweeted out about Werewolves Within being kind of the solid sign that Hard Eyes could be another Rubin horror comedy done right. And well, I was wrong. So this felt like a I swear to you, if the Wayans brothers came out and told me that this was a spoof, I would have believed it. I would have wholeheartedly thought that Keenan Ivory Wayans did it again. He snuck in, but he didn't. So it just feels like a rom-com spoof with a lackluster, lazy slasher stalking the hell out of it. That's what it felt like to me. So Hard Eyes is getting a VixFlix rating of 2 out of 5. And that is it for another volume of the Cinema Chronicles right here on Nashville Movie Dispatch. Again, I am your host, Brandon Vick. And you can follow me at Sir Brandon V, Sir Brandon on Letterboxd if you would like. And remember, we got all kinds of stuff on Nashville Movie Dispatch. And again, we're doing our live Oscars thing this Sunday to see who all the big winners are. Who's walking home with that gold naked ass. So check out all of our work for Nashville Movie Dispatch on Substack and search for Nashville Movie Dispatch wherever you get your podcasts. Until next month, until the next volume of these Cinema Chronicles, just go see a damn movie. Ooh.